Hey, Zero's on us. Oh god, I'm being nailed by
Got
Zero.
another one. Whee. Come on. Oh, whoops.
Hey, where am I going?
I just blew up. Hey there gamers, TNG Killer Lawyer here. Today I want to do a little bit of a post-commentary on the difference between arcade and realistic battles. As far as economics go, arcade is a much better game mode for research, and it has very cheap repair. It's got pretty short games. They're about 7 to 12 minutes, and it's got a very generous flight model. The flight model includes, faster turn time, and something that's pretty important in comparison to realistic is it has invincible wings gear and flaps. In terms of the wings gear and flaps won't break off if you go too fast or pull too hard in a high G turn. In addition, you can use WEP in arcade for short periods of time, and you have infinite fuel, something that you don't have in realistic. The damage model is pretty generous. Taking damage, you can still land fairly easily, and it doesn't affect your flight performance as much as realistic. There are some skill caps, though. I believe that there's a top max speed that even if an aircraft is faster than the other, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get away. As far as individual influence, there's not a lot of individual influence in arcade due to multiple spawns. Every player has at least 3 spawns to begin with, I believe, and most people buy an additional 2 slots, I think, or at least 1. So most players have at least 4 flyouts, meaning that each player's individual influence can be pretty small. But as far as tactics are, turn fighting is the dominant style. British, Japanese, and Russian are all fairly strong at this. British and Japanese focus mainly on turn fighting, and Russian is just a very well-rounded aircraft. Firepower can also affect gameplay. Germans are very good at using firepower, which can be used for head-ons, which is very common in arcade. There's also a reasonable amount of bombers, and a good armament will help a lot with that. However, there is an unspoken code in arcade that a lot of people will know if you've played the game for a little while. Some of the unspoken rules will be such as watching out for ramming. This is very common. Do expect it if you are new to the game. Kill stealing. That's also very common, and something you can practically expect if you don't secure your own kill. Team killing happens on occasion, and generally most players are pretty rude in chat as well. Nothing to take to heart. As far as skill goes, it's pretty basic at the beginning, and it's a great way to start learning because you get an aiming reticle in arcade. Now, for arcade, it's a lot faster to research because the XP that you gain, or whatever they use for the equivalent of experience, is a lot higher per kill and for your battle time than it would be in realistic. In addition, the games are a lot faster, so you can earn a lot more XP, or whatever it is called, per game, and it's a great way to learn how to aim in arcade rather than to learn via realistic. Now, realistic has kind of weak research, like I've said. There's not a lot of research that you earn per kill, and battle time is kind of sparse, so your economics will end up fluctuating a lot, because if you don't get about 1 kill for some aircraft, then you won't be able to gain a lot. And the main reason for a high fluctuation in like the Lion gain is the aircraft repair cost is a lot higher than it is in arcade. I believe it's like normally around 1,000-ish for arcade, and it can go up to 10,000 for realistic, for about tiers 3 and 4. As far as battle time goes, it's about 15 to 30 minutes on average, but also this can vary. Some games are very short because some pilots end up just crashing a lot. And because you only have one respawn, if everyone dies very quickly, the game is very short. But this also can result in longer games because some people play it very safely, resulting in very long games. I've had some games up to roughly 45 minutes. Not that I was the one participating still. The flight model can be very strict. Looking at the stats in War Thunder are not actually that exact. I found that it's not really that great to rely on the stats that War Thunder provides, but they're a helpful guide. The gist of it is that Japanese and British are very good turn fighters, which you will have to use to your advantage while you play realistic. In addition, Americans and Germans are especially good boom and zoom fighters. They both climb very well and dive very well. The Germans probably have the best armament in the game, as far as consistently per aircraft. But the Russians also have a pretty strong aircraft, and the Russians in general are fairly well-rounded. They have pretty good turn time, they're pretty good climbers, and they have pretty good armament. They're also relatively fast too. Other things to keep in mind while playing realistic, though, are that your wings, gear, and flaps can all break to going too fast or to pulling too hard in a turn or negative Gs. A common saying that you might hear is speed is good, but wings are better. This happens quite often where if you get in a dive and you are smart about how you play out, you can get your opponent to rip their wings by pulling too hard in a turn or out of a dive. In addition, there's a limited amount of fuel in realistic. It does matter then how much fuel you put in, and it also, however, will affect your flight performance. Increasing your fuel decreases your climb rate, and it decreases your turning time and your speed, but it also enables you to stay in the action longer, assuming that you don't die in the first pass. I found it helpful to do either 20 or 30 minutes depending on the aircraft. If I'm flying British, I tend to take 30, but if I'm flying Germans or Americans, I tend to take only 20, just because the Germans and Americans have a little bit more difficulty climbing than the British, but they also rely a lot more on altitude, versus the British tend to turn fight a lot more. I don't play a lot of Russians and Japanese, so I can't really say a lot about them in terms of how I would use the fuel, but most likely I would, again, like the British, probably keep it around 20 minutes because both the Japanese and the Russians are very good turn fighters as well. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that you practically have infinite WEP in realistic. There is no cap on that. It won't run out. What you do have to keep in mind is that your engine can overheat and that fuel runs out much faster. So WEP is something that it's great to use in a climb because by the time action gets started, you can back off the WEP and let your engine cool down, and so you don't have to worry about that as much. Mostly you are worried about the fuel, but it is good to keep in mind that your engine will overheat. That's something that I see mostly in the Germans with quick engine overheating. The Americans and the British tend to have pretty strong engines. As long as you keep the engine in check, you mostly have to worry about the German engines overheating because they do overheat very quickly. As far as flight model, again, it's pretty strict. There's no leeway that's created in arcade. Stalling and spinning is possible, but instructor will normally stop you before anything like that happens. That's not something really to worry about unless you're a more advanced pilot and you turn off instructor, so you can use stalling and spinning to your advantage. As far as individual influence, it can be very large. A single person can carry a game because there's only single respawns. So if one person gets 5 kills, there's only about normally 12 players in a match. So 5 kills is almost half the team. The rest of your team doesn't have to do much. As far as tactics go, altitude and energy are very important. They are key to the game. A strong boom and zoom fighter can be very effective against pretty much any sort of aircraft. As long as you have altitude, you pretty much have a large or significant advantage. Head-ons are not really uncommon, but they're not that common either. mostly because they're very risky, because you only have one aircraft. Getting pilot killed in a head-on is quite a shame in realistic, where you only get one respawn, or one spawn. Bomber spam does happen on occasion in realistic, because bombers have pretty good reward, and just getting like 2 or 3 ground kills can still earn you a small profit, and it's relatively quick. So bomber spam has been used to earn money in realistic game mode. As far as like unspoken like rules that or code that goes on is definitely to avoid rams. It's not. It looks really bad when you ram into a teammate. There tends to be a lot of harsh words in chat, mostly because you can't respawn. Definitely don't try to kill steal. Kill stealing is definitely frowned upon in realistic, because it's a lot harder to earn kills. So as a general rule, don't attack a critted or burning up aircraft in order to keep peace with your teammates. And as far as tactics go, for unspoken code would be to climb at the beginning and not to ground pound or attack the ground units at the beginning. And the skill level required for the realistic game mode is an intermediate to advanced. It requires a lot of knowledge about your opponents and their nations, such as like a Japanese aircraft. You should know that they're very strong turn fighters, and they have a relatively good armament, but they're less accurate. And overall, it's difficult to start out in realistic, because you have no aiming reticle, so you have to learn how to aim yourself. But if you are good, you can make significant gains in money. So it's an excellent way to earn lions. And as for me, I prefer to play realistic, because you end up having a lot less of the of ramming, kill stealing, team killing, and general chaos, as a RPG guy likes to chip in. But arcade's definitely a great way to blow off some steam if you're a little bit frustrated with realistic and losing very quickly, because you pretty much are guaranteed at least one kill in arcade. Well, anyways, that'll be all for today, and I hope you had a good time. See you in the next video.
Really close.
Top Gun?
No.
Shotgun?
No.
Top Gun?
No.
You're no fun.
Ah!